This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This contains slight spoilers from Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen with mentions of Iron Widow and The Rise of the Phoenixes.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the fantasy, literature, and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are welcoming a very special guest and our new friend, Amber Chen,
who is here to discuss her newest YA SilkPunk fantasy Of Jade and Dragons. Welcome, Amber.
Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Amber Chen. I'm the author of the YA SilkPunk fantasy Of Jade and Dragons that came out in June this year, with a sequel that's due to come out in June next year. So the book is about a girl whose father is murdered, and she goes on a hunt to find the murderer to seek justice for his death. And that takes her to the prestigious Engineers Guild, where she meets a kind of mysterious prince who helps her along. But along the way, she kind of starts to question whether or not revenge is the right thing to do, if it means going against what her father stood for and what he taught her. So that is the book in a nutshell. I am an author from Singapore, which is why it's midnight here, although it's like 12 hours away from where all of you are. And I'm a debut author, so I'm super excited to be here to chat.
Thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. We have physical copies of the book, and I know that I read this through audio as well. And Jess, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I feel like you already started us off by saying it is a YA SilkPunk fantasy. And that was already so alluring. I have yet to hear other books classified under that. But it's exactly with the vein of what we love. And where did you get that inspiration from? Where did you pull from it? Like, what was it that made you hone in on SilkPunk fantasy?
Yeah, so SilkPunk is a subgenre that belongs to like the entire punk genre of books. SilkPunk in particular was a term that was crafted by Ken Liu for his Dandelion Dynasty series. That's like an adult high fantasy series. And when he came up with the term, it was supposed to represent a specific technology and literary aesthetic that specifically draws from the history and culture of East Asia and the Pacific Islands. So kind of similar to steampunk, but with different sources of influence in that sense. Similar to all the other subgenres in the punk family, it also has key themes of rebellion, anti-authoritarianism, struggle for freedom, but it's unique in that sense that the inspiration behind all the technology is slightly different. So I thought it would be interesting to bring that genre into the YA space. There are some SilkPunk books, most of them are adult fantasy. So I found it really fascinating the way the technology was kind of developed in all those books. So that was what kind of inspired me to bring that genre into my own book and kind of write it the way I did.
You found that you're like, there is a need for this. Mm-hmm. Let me write that need because nobody has yet, especially in the YA, make it more known.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the first to write like Chinese themed books with technology. I mean, you have like Iron Widow, things like that. But I definitely think that there's room for more. And I really enjoy that kind of East Asian inspired tech. So happy to contribute to the genre.
Thank you.
I know, that's amazing. Of course, we are huge fans of Iron Widow on this podcast. You are really fantastic in this world that you have created of Jade and Dragons. Very specific to say from the beginning, there are no actual dragons in this book. I know you have made a point to say that. Don't expect them. Expect them in a different sort of way. Look on the cover and you'll see why, but not to expect an actual dragon. That's very important, I think. But when we're talking about SilkPunk and steampunk and all of this, the machines are really a huge, huge feature of that. And of course, listeners may know I have no talent. You have so much talent because not only did you write a book, which I could never do, but you created machines within this world. So not only did you build a world, but you built machines in there too. That's incredible to me. What was that process like for you? Did you kind of build like models so that you could kind of put them together, or like Legos? I have no idea. I am so interested.
No, so I'm probably like really terrible at building models and stuff like that, but I do have a background in science, so I think that kind of helped a lot. And a lot of the technical aspects of things that you see in the book are just things that kind of made sense to me physics-wise, so I wouldn't say it was too challenging on that front. I actually did more historical research than engineering research because I wanted to kind of blend reality with fantasy and to make these like machines feel possible and realistic. So a number of the inventions that appear in the book are kind of inspired by spin-offs of actual inventions that appeared in historical China, with a bit of, imagination just to embellish things here and there. So that was kind of important to me to make the tech believable. So that was kind of how the process worked. And one of the books that I referenced in developing the kind of technological world of Jade and Dragons was this firearms manual from the Ming Dynasty. So it's called the Fire Dragon Manual. And then you have lots of really creative, some kind of bizarre inventions. So the things you see in the final guild trial, not to give too many spoilers, but in the final guild trial, that the apprentices come up with some of their own inventions that sound a bit crazy, and a bit out of this world. And I think that was all real, actually, quite a lot of it. And people just don't expect that it is. I think that along the course of history, scientists have actually come up with quite a lot of strange and wonderful inventions that may or may not have become mainstream. So it was very fascinating doing all the research into that tech.
And the inventions that are like a lot of trial and error. You're like, this is good in theory, but maybe not in execution. For across the board. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe someone will read the book and say that this really does not make sense. So, all the real engineers out there.
Before we dive kind of into this book and into this wonderful world that you have created, I'd like to talk a little bit about the way that you kind of got here. I know your publishing story is full of surprises and twists and turns. And I also know that one of your works has been adapted to a TV show. And that is incredible. Congratulations to that. So what was your publishing journey like for this?
Oh, so you're right in saying that there's a lot of twists and turns. So I first started writing when I was in university, so that was several years back, and it was because I kind of ran out of TV dramas to watch during that period. I just watched tons of TV dramas, and there were so many that left me kind of unsatisfied in terms of the ending. So I decided to kind of take things in my own hands and write my own stories. I first started out in the world of fanfic, but it was more like casting my favorite actors, actresses, singers in roles in original stories that I would come up with. So that was kind of the closest I got to creating, in that sense, a TV drama that starred actors that I thought would fit the roles. And then I moved on to Wattpad, and that was where kind of everything escalated, in a sense. I wrote original stories on Wattpad kind of as a hobby, and the Wattpad team scouted one of those stories, which is The Cutting Edge. That's a new adult contemporary series, and said they wanted to pitch it for TV. So that was kind of in 2019, and it actually managed to go all the way. The Wattpad team sold the AV rights for that, and it got made into an 8-episode TV series, which was quite surprising. So I don't know, it kind of felt like I was doing things all the wrong way around, because most people, get traditionally published first. You have to get an agent, then you get a publisher, and then you sell rights, and maybe there's a very small chance that you get a TV or film adaptation. So things were all happening in the wrong order. But that kind of made me feel like maybe there's actual publishing potential for my work beyond just writing for fun on Wattpad. So that was when I started seriously thinking about traditional publishing, and Of Jade and Dragons was the first manuscript that I wrote with the intention of traditional publishing. I submitted it for the, now defunct Pitch Wars mentorship program, and I went through the program, very grateful for the support of my mentors. And then that was where things started taking on a more, regular path in publishing. I did the querying, got my first agent after 9 months of querying, and then we sold Of Jade and Dragons in a duology. So here we are.
Here we are. And we have mentioned, you have mentioned that you were binging TV while you were at university. That's incredible. And I know that it would be very easy to make a comparison when we start talking about just the general plot points of this book to Mulan. I'm not going to do that. I am going to say that one of my favorite TV shows, The Rise of the Phoenixes, is very much similar to this. She goes in, she's disguised as a boy. It's amazing. My favorite Chinese drama. So I loved this, really digging into this. This was fantastic. I love the idea of we're going into disguise. We're going to show all the boys. We're going to be with these stinky boys. And we are going to be better than all of them because we have a father full of mysterious secrets that has been murdered. This is the opening. This is fantastic. This meat of this story, of course, you said it in the intro. We have a mysterious kind of prince too, number 8. All of this is wonderful. Where did this inspiration come from?
So the inspiration for Of Jade and Dragons came from a true historical story from the early Qing dynasty. I like reading up about history, so one of my hobbies is just speculating about the lives of these historical figures and filling in the gaps of what might have happened in their lives, and that's what happened here. So Jade and Dragons came from the story of the first emperor of the Qing dynasty, Huang Taiji, and the woman that, history said he loved the most, Hajou. And so there are plenty of Easter eggs in the book that draw from actual historical events during this transitional period from the late Ming to the early Qing dynasty of China. So a lot of these characters that you see in the book, the main character Ying, and the love interest, Ye Yang, all of them are based on actual people. So what I found really fascinating about the story of these real people was that as an emperor, I imagine that, at that point in time, emperors could have any girl they wanted. They had plenty, right? But this particular emperor loved Hajou so much that it was quite an anomaly. She entered the palace only at the age of 26, which was a lot older than the marriageable age of girls in that particular time period, which is probably about 15 or so. So she was a whole 10 years older, and no one really knows what happened in her life before she entered the palace. And yet she kind of had this meteoric rise in the emperor's favor. So much so that when she was on her deathbed, he happened to be away fighting a war. And he dropped everything and flew back on horseback to the palace just to see her one last time when he heard that she was about to die. And he didn't make it, so he didn't get to see her for the final time. And it was just really, to me, it sounded really sad. And then the folklore has it that he was so devastated by her loss that his health just took a turn for the worse, and he died like a couple of years later. So it just seemed to me like such a tragic love story. At the same time, there are so many mysteries about it. Like, why did he love her so much? How did she end up entering the palace at this age? What happened in her life before that? And those were the kind of questions that sparked off of Jade and Dragons. So in a way, of Jade and Dragons is my imagining of what could have happened in the lives of these two people before she officially entered the palace. Like, did they actually meet outside before, and that there was like actually more to their story that didn't make it to the history books? And yeah, so that's what started everything.
I love a good book where it makes you want to be like, wait, there's real stories. This is based on real events. I need to look up more.
I know, that's incredible. And we love when we have trials that we have to do. And we love when we're in like a school setting. That is just, that's amazing here. So writing the Engineers Guild and kind of stepping into this school setting and writing all of these boys. What was it like writing all of these boys?
Oh, it was really fun. Like, I don't know, like if you go to like the 2000s, there was like this phase in Asian TV where there were like tons of idol dramas that start basically boy bands with like one female character. So that was kind of a trending thing in the 2000s. So this honestly felt a bit like that, where you like have an entire cast of boys and then just this one girl. And that just happened to be this way because of the way the guild was structured, that it was a boys only kind of restricted place. So it was fun to kind of play with that kind of dynamics of how Ying would interact with the different boys. And then all of them have their own different characters, their different motivations. So that to me was quite fun and something that, for someone who started in fanfic, writing like kind of K-pop fanfiction, this was something that I enjoy doing. Although perhaps people will find that in the sequel to Of Jade and Dragons that things will take a slightly different turn, and that we will start seeing a more diverse cast of characters, at least gender-wise.
Well, and one of the things that I love that you do here is like you have your background in science. Engineering Guild is at the forefront, and she's besting them or being a part of them, and it's proving a point. And my family, everybody's in STEM except me. I'm not as smart as everybody else, but it's always that it does feel like, for lack of a better word, like a boys club for, and yes, we have women in STEM and it's growing, but like my family and their generation, that wasn't the case. And they were kind of like fighting against the norm and constantly proving themselves in these, male dominated spaces. So you like having Ying excel continuously and proving it. And even like from the get go, she's like, I'm gonna mask who I am, and I'm gonna prove them all wrong. Even at like the reluctance of other people to be like, fine, I'll add her name in because the high commander told me so, just because of a personal vendetta and beef that that they have with her dad.
Yeah, so I think that was something that was quite important to me. Like what you said, although it is better now, I would say, in the fields of STEM where girls do have opportunities to be part of this industry, there is I mean, my personal experience is that it is still traditionally quite male dominated. And if you are a female in this space, you still do kind of have to fight your way through things like microaggressions or, well, the patriarchal system is still quite strong in certain fields of STEM. So Ying's character arc therefore came quite naturally to me because a lot of her experiences as a girl trying to establish herself in this male-dominated profession resonated very much with my own experiences in the world of STEM. And the idea of therefore using this story to kind of empower girls to not only take on but excel in traditionally masculine fields like engineering is an important theme in Jade and Dragons, and one that I think is very close to my heart.
No, I was going to say, and challenge it too. Like that was so, like, you know, every time she tried to challenge it, they're like, do what's in the book. Why didn't you actually didn't follow what we told you to follow? So like
the book is
questioning,
wrong.
Yeah, the book is wrong, questioning the authority. And yes, the book is wrong, but your way was more effective. But good thing, you know, like with the second guild challenge, but it wouldn't have been better long term, you know, if we had more time. You know, there was a lot of little nuances, but it's the challenging of authority and challenging the men.
Yeah, so I mean, that is the philosophy of science, I would think, like to constantly challenge what we know or we think we know. So regardless who kind of says that, I don't think as a scientist, anyone would ever take it as 100% fact. So anything is up for challenge, and it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a girl, you can be anyone. And you should be free to kind of do that. And that's how progress works.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's how progress works. That's so good. So we're talking about the Engineers Guild and the trials that we have here. There are 3. Now, my question to you is, when you were writing this out, and because there's a lot of plots going on, we have our main plot, we have a little bit of a romance plot, we have a politics plot, and then we have school, things that are going on in school. There's a lot going on. So when you were writing this, what was the writing process like for you? Are you a kind of just like put it all out there and edit later kind of person? Or are you very organized? Do you have binders? What was that process like for you?
I don't think I'm too organized. So when it comes to writing, I'm somewhere in between. So between a plotter and a pantser, I guess that's what we call ourselves. I have a lot of story ideas, so I wouldn't start drafting one unless I have a clear ending in mind. So that's how I kind of decide what kind of story ideas to work with. Because if I don't have the ending in mind, I typically can't finish it. Like I get lost halfway through. So once I have that, like the start and the end, then I kind of just come up with some points along the journey. It's kind of like a roadmap, but not too detailed. And then I write it based on that. So I'm just trying to hit certain road markers along the way. And only when the entire draft is done, then I kind of go back and do the reverse outline and work out whether or not all these different subplots that you've mentioned are working the way they should, whether they're spaced and paced the way they should be. So that's typically how I go about it. Although, I mean, before I sold this first book, editing was something that I found quite challenging because I haven't worked with a professional editor before. And it, honestly, I think for any debut author, this might be kind of a culture shock in a sense to have to partner someone else to work on your book, baby, that so far you've been the only one working on it and no one else has kind of done very much with it before, and to kind of surrender that kind of autonomy over your story.
Surrender control? No.
I think it's something that many authors would find quite difficult to do, but I mean, it is the partnership process, and you just have to trust that your editor does want to help make it an even better book. And I think I've been quite fortunate that my editor has never kind of forced anything on me It's always been like suggestions rather than you have to change A, B, C, D in the book. And she hasn't done that. So that's great. Yeah. And I think that's been really helpful so far in terms of helping me kind of refine certain plot ideas and shape the book to be even better.
Now, with surrendering control, there's a level of vulnerability that you have of Jade and Dragons, and it's, you're sharing this art with the world. Did you feel the same way when you started writing with, sharing your fanfics and your original characters? Like, what was that process, sharing your art in different
formats, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess I had more experience in that sense because when you write online and you do online fiction, then it is far more open to receiving comments from readers than actually traditional publishing. Because with a traditionally published book like of Jade and Dragons, once it's been published, I do have some freedom in that sense to say I'm not going to look at reviews and things like that. But when you write web novels, the interaction with readers is kind of an expectation, and you do see like all the comments. But I think I've been quite fortunate that a lot of the comments on my fan fiction or my original web novels have been very kind. So I find that the web novel community has been very supportive, and I think they are part of the reason why I'm still writing. So they have been very encouraging, and I guess it might be to do with the fact that we're all from the same fandoms and things like that. So a lot of very positive comments and encouraging me to keep writing, and so I did. Slightly different from the experience with doing the TV adaptation. That was when I truly had to surrender absolute control over my work. So I think this is something that authors will find challenging as well when they sell AV rights for TV or film adaptations, because you really do no longer own any creative control, and the production team can then change your work to whatever form they feel fits best. And of course, they are professionals in that medium, so you're just going to have to trust that they are going to do justice to your story.
Talk about vulnerability, sharing vulnerability. At least you could work with your editor with traditional publishing. Once you've relinquished that control, you're like, oh, but you changed the dialogue, or the importance of this dialogue is so X, Y, and Z can be executed in episode 6. The minimal freedom there of control. You're
yes,
like, no.
So I really went through the entire spectrum of like having absolute control when I was doing my web novels, and then to having no control with the TV adaptation, and then some control with of Jade and Dragons and traditional publishing. So it's been interesting seeing how like these different forms of publishing work.
That is the best answer. That is so interesting. It just makes me more excited for the second book, but we're still here. We're still in the first book. Okay. So I kind of want to talk about the politics that are kind of happening in this book. We have the politics between the students, but then we have there's a war. There's a war happening. There's battles being fought. There is a lot of I would say like very, very deep politics that Ying says like I need to learn like the families and like what's going on and how everyone's really connected here and how that applies to what's going on out there. And I find the attention to detail and the intricacies in that politics plot to be particularly interesting. I like politics. But that part, was that inspired by anything in particular, or were you just like, I want to make this dramatic?
Well, I do like drama, but so the politics backstory in Of Jade and Dragons is also heavily inspired by that particular period in the Qing dynasty. So kind of before it was officially established, there are aspects like the hierarchical structure, the way you have the 8 banners, and that's how the military was organized. And that takes reference from the way things were in China during the 1600s. The kind of war that is going on between the Nine Isles and the Great Jade Empire that mirrors the fighting that was taking place between the Manchurians of the Qing dynasty and then the Han Ming dynasty at that time, before the Ming dynasty was eventually overthrown. So there are a lot of complexities during that time. There was infighting between the different clans and between the different princes. All of that, in a sense, was true to history. And then there was also the kind of reasons why they had to fight this war, because the Manchurians at that time were nomadic people, and then because of their kind of way of life, their resources were not as rich as the Han Ming dynasty. So that was what kind of triggered the entire war. So I have been very fascinated by that period in history. So those were some facts, Easter eggs that I've worked into of Jade and Dragons. Not sure how many people would realize that, but yeah.
Well, facts. This has been, I'm not going to say bothering me. That's not the word. This has been just, I guess, eating at me. If you could please answer to the best of your ability, how long is one incense stick being burned? How much time is that?
It really depends, because you have incense sticks that are this long, and then you have the giant ones that are huge. So really, Chinese people have varying lengths of incense sticks that could range from an hour to a day. So, and they burn at different rates as well. So.
Well, even in one of the challenges, they even say, they were like, yeah, you have 3 incense sticks, but you're going to want to work faster. Nobody really knows what that means.
Nobody really knows, I mean, how fast it will actually take to burn down.
And it probably depends on, like, there's different scents that probably burn at a different rate, too, I would imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
And, like, weather conditions and stuff, so.
My gosh. How fun. Okay, so when we are wrapping of Jade and Dragons, we end, of course, you said you like drama. I do too. We end very dramatically. We have a nice, very sweet, like, kind of ending, but our big moment is very dramatic. I love it. You know, there's violence, there's machinery, there's plots being revealed, there is truth abounding, amazing kind of stuff here. Writing this, you said you do not write a story without having an ending. So this kind of like build to this ending must have been already in your head when you started. Yeah. 'Cause this is great stuff.
Yes, I would say that the ending was something that I already had in mind when I started drafting the book. So there was one thing that was certain. It was the way it was going to end. I do like drama. And I, unfortunately, also like tragedy. So that is something that...
Unfortunately. No, it's great stuff.
No, we love it. Like, unfortunately,
that.
Yeah, we're like, that adds to the drama.
That's the
but
good
we're
stuff.
like, I'm going to have to like...
Yeah, I know, it's unfortunate. Like, I had so many of my friends just come screaming at me, like, and then... But they know that this is the kind of books that Amber writes because I enjoy it. So, yeah, so I did have that kind of ending in mind with all the drama. It probably got more dramatic after my editor had a go at it. Because, like, she said, you can draw this out and, like, amplify things. So it did get more dramatic, I think, in the final versions.
That's kind of great that you thought you were like, I love drama and I love tragedy. And your editor's just saying more. Like the Kylo Ren, like, yeah, he's like, more. Like, they were like, give it all, like, make it, like, let's blow it up right now.
Okay, so Jess mentions Kylo Ren, which just makes me think. I'm framing this moment. There is a moment during the, I would say, love story portion of this wonderful story that you've created here, where our prince is like, "Hey, rule the empire with me. Like, let's do this. Like, you and me." And she's like, "No, couldn't be me. She's better than I am." Oh my gosh. Incredible. Because I'd be like, yes, all right, let's go. But, she has morals, ethics, and standards, which of course I don't. So amazing, amazing stuff here. Just to say that the characters here are fascinating and amazing, and knowing that they are like loosely kind of based on these real people makes this even more fascinating. So our prince here has a plan the whole time, and he's got eyes on the prize, and using kind of everybody to the situation, but kind of wrapping this at the very end of this story. We have our prince like, you know what? You turn me down, I'm going to go and do it up big and prove it to you, and I'm going to come back for you. And she's like, okay, I love it. Amazing stuff. Just fantastic. Because we also have some like family politics that are playing in there too. But I really loved everything about this book. And when you say that, you were watching things during university that left you feeling unsatisfied, well, it's not this, because all this did was just be like, yes, all right. And then kind of just pique my interest for book 2, which, Jess, what is... Yeah.
Because it's going to be out right now, June 17th, which is less than a year than... it's almost a year to the month, but less than a year than the first book came out. So how has that whole process been now that you have you've already established this story? Do you get to, feel like you're diving right into it? Is it a whole different process? Like, what's that been like?
Yeah, so I think when I started writing of Jade and Dragons, I had originally planned it to be 2 books. So while I think a lot of people thought that of Jade and Dragons kind of wrapped up nicely in the sense that, the entire murder plot kind of gets tied up. And then I have had people tell me that actually the ending could stay as it is, as a standalone. But I just feel like that's not the end to their story. So while plot-wise, of Jade and Dragons probably could be a standalone in terms of the character arcs of our 2 main characters, there's still some way to go, and that's what we're going to see in book 2. For book 2, which is The Blood Phoenix, coming out 17 June, it will be an entirely new plot in a sense that is somewhat connected to the politics of the original plot. But we will see a continuation of the development of Ying and Ye Yang's character arcs. And we will also be bringing in more of her younger sister, Yan, who is coming to the capital, and as well as everyone's favorite 14th Prince, who seems to kind of be the fan favorite, I think, in the entire book.
Well, we love... Obviously, we love all of this so much, and we are so excited, not only for book 2, but just to meet you and interact with you. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Where can everyone find you? Like your socials? Do you have anything that you want to promote? This is your time.
Well, you can find me on most social media platforms, I guess. Instagram, TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, at AmberWrites88. And I have a website at ambercwrites.com that you can find out more information, sign up for my newsletter. And arcs for the sequel of Jade and Dragons 2, The Blood Phoenix, should be coming out fairly soon. So people can keep a lookout for that on my socials, and pre-orders are also open. So if you enjoy the first book and you want to get the second one with swag, then please do pre-order the book.
And we'll make sure all of that information and everything is hyperlinked in our show notes and our, and promote it in our socials. And we want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much, Amber, for taking the time today. I know it's late. We're so glad that we got to dive into this a little bit more and just get to discuss it, and share it, why everybody should be reading this and adding it to their TBR so they can get prepared for next summer. There's a lot of books and not enough time, and this should be on the list for them.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. It was so fun chatting with the both of you.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. And as Amber mentioned, make sure you check her out on all of her socials. We'll have those in our show notes. And of course, feel free to follow us at ACOFAE Podcast on Instagram. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.